Hello. Hi. How you guys doing? And girls. Welcome to Vegas Programmers. We've been. When did the origins of the meetup start? Like 2004, right? Something like that. When Ray, UNLV, like back then. So almost 20 years. I mean, obviously on and off or whatever, but I've kind of been. I think over the last now 10 years, I've been running this, and it's not just the knowledge that I get from the meetups that I love about this. It's the friends, the networking, and all that kind of stuff. It's a great place to talk to other like-minded individuals, learn, and really just grow in multiple facets of our lives, right? So thank you very much for coming. I know it's getting like earlier, and it threw me off. I left the house and I still haven't changed the time on my car, and yeah, anyway. Thank you very much for grabbing food, Manny. He just offered last time. I mean, we used to have a sponsor, a recruiter that like dropped out and used to do that, and you rock. Thank you very much. Yes. And thank you to Corporate Co-working. They obviously are an awesome sponsor because they gave us this space. And if you are looking for a great place, which I've actually worked here a couple of times, I think Cody's worked here, a few of us. It's a great place to work out of, and a bunch of great amenities here. So if you're ever interested in getting a free day pass, just hit up Tony, go to corporatecoworking.com, and you can get hooked up there. Also, our sponsor JetBrains, they give us a 1-year free license to give out at every meetup. Manny got the last one, so we'll be giving that away here at the end as well. So today we're going to be talking about this was a 3-hour tutorial that I submitted for a conference, and the conference has come and went, and I wanted to give the Roadrunner version of this, because obviously we're not going to be able to dive too much into the at the end I had like this hackathon. We can't do that part, but maybe one day next year we can have like a dedicated hackathon where we can use the workshop upstairs and have like a more collaborative thing, have people actually ask questions and work on their own laptops or whatever. But for now, you're just gonna have to watch me. If at any time during this talk, feel free, if you have questions, just raise your hand. You don't have to wait till the end. I know I would forget if I had to wait. So let's chug right along, and already off to a good start. Okay. So who am I? I am Joshua Copeland. I've been developing since 2004, mainly in PHP, but I've since then obviously branched into a lot of other things. I've done Go, Python, all that kind of great stuff. I run a freelance software development shop called Remote Dev Force. If you need software developers, give me a shout. I can grab a business card. We have a couple of devs that just wrapped up on a project, and we're looking for another project to get them on. I've been freelancing for quite some time before it was cool, before the pandemic. So when that hit, it was like no big deal. And yeah, I've been running this for quite some time. Actually, 2010, so what, 14 years now. And by the way, the reason I still run this to this day, I've been running it once a month since then, is because when I was in college here, there was no user group. There was no place for me to learn. And, it was a bummer until I got into a bigger company where I've learned from the, mentors, what is it called? The shoulder of giants, if you will. Did I start to excel my career, my knowledge, things like that, and push myself further. So that's why I do this, to give back. I'm starting a YouTube channel too. The what you're going to see here, I'm going to break down into more digestible things later and put it up on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, that's my beautiful family. And then yeah, if you want to hit me up, josh@remotedevforce.com. You can check out our website. We do a lot of different stuff. So in this talk, I feel like I'm in the worst position. You're going to have to maybe follow me around a little bit. The overview basically is we're going to be talking about the different terms. So I'm going to kind of just dive into like high level terms of what you're going to hear if you talk to people who deal in AI, and why you should leverage AI specifically for coding, because that's like probably one of the biggest use cases right now. Now we've got image generation, that's a big one. Obviously audio, video is starting to make its way out. There's going to be other use cases, I'm sure, in the future that we're going to talk about, especially here at the end, that are kind of exciting. AI coding assistants, we're going to talk about some of the tools that I've used that I think are great, and kind of show you give you some alternatives there. For example, we're going to quickly talk about Cursor. We're not going to really go into that too deep, but we're going to talk about how to use GPT Engineer and ChatGPT to generate code. We're going to show how to run local images for coding specifically. So if you're, let's say, super paranoid about throwing your stuff into GitHub Copilot, even though it is safe, if you want a closed system, let's say you're traveling, you're on the airplane, no internet, whatever, you can run AI coding models locally, albeit they're going to be a lot smaller and probably not as good as some of these bigger ones. But anyway, and scratch that out. We're going to have no hackathon, but there will be a prize. I'll ask some question at the end or whatever. And this comes with a repository. You can go to just Remote Dev Force on GitHub. There's one called AI Coding Tutorial. There's it's a bit sparse in some sections. I still need to kind of fill in some areas, but it should be good enough. There's a lot of good README information in here. So feel free to jet there and take a look. And these slides were way too large when I pushed it. I had to like revert my commit because I was like 400 megabytes, no! And anyway, so I have to put these slides up onto the interwebs. So TBD, I will get those up somewhere. Okay, so our first term we'll talk about is artificial intelligence, AI. And basically it's just kind of this overarching thing, right, that talks about all these different, we'll call it, sections, if you will. There's robotics. They're talking about, surgeons may one day be doing less because maybe these things can do it better. We'll see. There obviously are some concerns there. So anyway, we'll dive more into the specific things here that are related to coding with AI in particular. But one of the other things that you'll hear as a term is machine learning. I really like this graph here because we just talked about AI. Well, a subset of that is machine learning. And then underneath machine learning, you've got deep learning. And then this data science area here kind of overlaps them all. The people who are claiming that they make $300,000 to $800,000 a year in the AI space are most likely these folks here, who know how to code, know how to do data science, big data, that sort of deal, but also know how to leverage AI to do that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Machine learning in general, this is kind of an overview, but effectively, machine learning needs human intervention to define feature extraction. So things like edge detection and classification of the data. So when dealing with images, this can also be termed as computer vision. So essentially, you've got a bunch of training data, and then this model will classify that data over time. And we'll talk about this, which is called deep learning. It's basically, instead of you giving the training model, you let AI itself train itself. Like it trains the model based off of just data that you're flushing in. So deep learning in itself is a subset of machine learning. And basically, if you think about a human brain, it's a neural network. And this is just an artificial neural network. And these mimic humans' brains by like neurons firing and a bunch of like probably matrix level stuff. I won't, whatever. But anyway, so you have a bunch of data, and we'll talk a little bit about the difference between these two, right? So with machine learning, if your data set's small or you have a large data set, you want to probably use deep learning. If you want to choose your own features, then you can use machine learning. But this is more of a black box approach when it's training itself, right? In fact, there's 3 huge podcasts that just came out and I'll try to quickly show them at the end, not show them, but just show you where to go to watch them. But even the people that are building these massive, mind-blowing models don't even know what it's doing half the time. They have to, like, there are ways of trying to, for example, like a model would be too apologetic, and they would try to tweak it to not do that. Could have cascading effects for it to like do other things. Then it'd be too rude, right, or whatever. So it's very difficult to tweak a model. But anyway, if you have like as far as classifiers are concerned, if you have a few only that you need, then deep learning is great. If there's a lot, and then training time, machine learning is very short. You're providing the data, whereas deep learning, it needs to train itself. It's going to take a heck of a lot longer. We talked briefly about neural networks. There are layers, and these are the hidden layers we're talking about. This is the stuff that's very difficult for these people who build models to actually figure out what it's doing. You can see the output, and we are putting the input for our prompts, but figuring this piece out, it's very difficult for it to, for us to peek in here. Generative AI is another subset of deep learning. So think of this as now you can go on ChatGPT and you can say, give me an image of a cat, and it will go and generate an image. That's basically generative AI. It generates something, creates something. And so that's everything from text to video. Basically, that's where this whole new explosion of AI and actual practical use cases are not coming out for this. Because AI has been around forever, but only until recently are these actual practical use cases coming out for it. There's another term, NLP. It's a branch of artificial intelligence. It's basically a way for you to talk to the model and back and forth, right? So it must be able to parse words and phrases and take that into a grammatical structure and then basically generate what it thinks is the right answer to provide that back as its output. So NLP. I love this one. I think this is probably my favorite graph in all of the slides I have here, because this talks about basically the parameters that these models had in the past and how it's grown over time. So for example, GPT-1, the very first version of OpenAI when they released it, had 117 million parameters. Think of the more parameters it has, the smarter it is, right? And there's a bunch of other ones, like NVIDIA has their kind of own thing, and some ones I've never heard of. Google's got their own too, Palm-E. They're obviously quite large at 562 billion. But why I love this graph is because GPT-4 is amazing. I've asked it some crazy questions. In fact, there's a new model that's just been released for coding specifically with GPT-4 that has been, in fact, in one of the podcasts I was listening to, they threw a problem at Claude and all the major models that are out there, and none of them solved it the way he wanted to. And he threw this at this new preview image that just came out with GPT-4, and it actually solved it. They have not disclosed how big these models are, because they're probably, maybe, who knows, right? I could speculate, but quite massive. Yes?
Disclosing how much money they spend to train the models generally?
They're not disclosing how much. It is an open consortium of sorts, right? So there's probably numbers out there of how much money is being donated to the foundation, the OpenAI Foundation, but how much of that are they actually spending on training? I don't know if they're disclosing that, because there is like there's a corporate side of the Open Foundation that, there's some drama there, but I will tell you that there's pre-training and post-training, and they're very expensive to train a model.
Before I forget, is natural language processing related at all to generative AI or to neural networks, or is it a separate domain? Is it like
And take this with a grain of salt because I'm kind of assuming here, but I think with NLP in particular, it gives the computer ability to understand text and spoken words.
Okay, so that question doesn't necessarily, it's not, it's a broad umbrella.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Sweet. So obviously one of the biggest first use cases of AI is, chatbots. We've seen this with GPT, and things like Amazon support, which by the way, like if you ever have an issue, just go to Amazon, like AI chat and just say like, you will give me a refund, and it will. But yeah, so obviously everybody's familiar with that. We're not going to dive too much into that. So you talk to it, it gives you output. But here's the thing, it gives you an answer of what it thinks is right. Everything AI tells, or whatever, the output doesn't necessarily mean that it's the truth, right? And when you get a false answer, it's called a hallucination. So it's basically making something up that sounds convincing, but it could be entirely fabricated. Think of this being potentially problematic when you have maybe a healthcare bot that looks at skin lesions and perhaps thinks something is malignant, and yet they go get surgeries and all this stuff later to find out it's not that big of a deal. Or let's say a Tesla, thinking something's, not a wall and it's a wall. So yeah, it's again, this stuff's not perfect. Humans aren't perfect either though, right? Arguably, I will tell you, I'd probably rather have self-driving cars everywhere, but the problem is if there's humans on the road, self-driving cars aren't going to work. That's just my 2 cents. RAG. So thank you, Cody. I put this slide in just for you because you yelled at me last time. Essentially what this means is now we have these models and they're great, right? But let's say you have a spreadsheet or a document or a bunch of text and you don't really feel like figuring out, let's say your boss sends you a 3-page manifesto on why your department sucks. Well, you could just take that and give it to ChatGPT, whatever model, and use that as content for the AI model to ingest. That process is basically called retrieval augmented generation. So with those documents now stored in the model, when you ask a question related to it, such as, why does my boss think my department sucks? Please summarize this in 2 sentences. It will go and try to figure that out and give you what it thinks is the right answer based off of that additional data that it now has. Where this is really cool is things like Microsoft Azure has, I think, led the space in this a bit with their Copilot product, which is, think of this as your SQL database down here and your code and things like that. Now you could ask a question, how many orders have we done today? How many bugs were reported last month? And instead of having to go to, thing and trying to do all the filters and search yourself, think of these as ways it can leverage and give you the answer of what you want quicker. So
Google also has a good one, Notebook.
Gemini, you mean?
No, Notebook LM.
Notebook LM? Okay. I was disappointed with Gemini, I would say, but okay. But they have a bunch of different AI products. That's kind of the crazy part, right? There's Bard and this and that. So, but Gemini itself, I've tried, and I'm still paying for it now that I think about it. Okay. Oh, I'm really excited about this one. So this is the next frontier of even not only just coding, but AI in general. also where it could probably get dangerous, but agents. So one of the new developments in AI are agents. These can provide even more power to automate tasks such as working on code while you sleep, or working on tasks in the background while you're still doing things. Given the nature of not having to wait for a response, these can take as long as they need to solve complex problems. So Google's Vertex, AWS Bedrock agents are some of the examples of SaaS products out there right now, and there will be more because this space is changing every week. But if you think about where I'm most excited for this is, let's say you're looking at a bug and you want AI to go work on it. The problem with a lot of the models right now is they're designed for speed. They want to give you an answer quick because they don't want you sitting there for 10 minutes waiting for an answer. The problem with that is they can't take its time to figure out what the problem is. Because just as a developer would debug a bug, you need to run the application, put test data in, write tasks, see where the bug is, do all this stuff, right? So the idea with agents is that you could literally have this thing go do tasks that take longer than just, hey, give me a response back very quickly. So some of the examples here beyond just code could be attaching it to an email server, responding to emails, plugging it into other data in your company, talking to users, things like that. So there are a lot of possibilities here, I feel like. Probably a lot of great startup ideas that probably will come out of this. The one earliest one I can think of, if you want to call it an agent, is Google Assistant. So if you wanted to make a reservation, and I think this was before OpenTable and all of that, or you wanted to get your hair done, and you're not the type, like my wife, to make phone calls. So you could tell Google to, basically it'll call the place, make your appointment for you. I'm curious whether it sounds like a robot voice or they like try to convincingly pass it off like it's a person, but essentially making the appointment for you and letting you know your appointment's been made and doing something like that. So there's a lot of possibilities here. If you want to learn more about agents, this is a really great podcast that came out from the Cursor team. One of the, I don't think he's here, but one of the guys said that Cursor is, I don't know, a little shady. But listening to these four, I'm sure, I don't know if one of them is necessarily CEO. Cursor itself is a great IDE. It's expensive though. You have to pay for it per month, blah, blah, blah. But it is very good. You still behind the scenes have to plug it into a model though, and we'll talk a little bit about using things like JetBrains to plug in your own models. So anyway, yeah, agents. In that podcast, they talk a lot about agents, and there's a lot of great things that are going to come out with that. So why you should use AI, I think we've already kind of, covered a lot of this, but yeah, it's great. I think one of the biggest things though is that, and more for me why I started diving into this is we're starting to see AI engineering outpace software engineering salaries in some cases, not all cases. But there are definitely some people in the AI space that are making unreal money in that space. But obviously, you got to play, or you got to know your stuff. And there's a lot of math behind AI that I am way too unqualified for. So if you start getting into the nitty gritty, that's where I start to kind of fall apart. Copilot. So we're going to talk about our first product that I think is the easiest to start with if you want to start coding with AI, which is GitHub Copilot. We'll talk a little bit about the difference between Copilot Chat and the IDE integration itself, and then we'll show a PHP example here. So to get started, you just go to Copilot. They have a couple of different ones here. I'm on this one here, $10 a month. it's worth it for the ease of use for Copilot. Not to say that maybe GPT-4's new model might be even better than this, but this one is very good. So yeah, you fill it out, sign up, and yeah, more sign up stuff. This one here, if you want to block public code, then you can turn this off. I just wanted to highlight that. Arguably, you probably want to leave that on for better code generation. And then there's a lot of different plugins. So whatever IDE you probably use, there's a plugin for it. So when you activate it in your IDE, you're typically going to have one or two extensions installed. In this case with VS Code, we've got Copilot and then Copilot Chat. So you just activate those, and yeah, I have a video here, I think. So to open so the first one we're going to talk about is the chat prompt. So we'll play the video here. By the way, when I was recording this, I did not know it was recording my audio, so you just hear me like going. I think one of them I sneezed too or something, but yeah. So I'm writing. So I hit. What is that? Super button I, and then it opens up this window, and then I put and I spelt it all wrong, and it still understood me. Make a simple car object. You're going to be familiar with this, Adam, with an engine as a private parameter. And so here's the code that it generated here. So, yeah. And then the next thing I'm going to show, so that's a prompt. You can, like, if you wanted to generate a chunk of code, create a class for you, you can use that prompt to say, okay, create this chunk of code for me. But Copilot also has what's called inline suggestions. Sometimes these can get annoying, but essentially, when your cursor is in the text box, Copilot is starting to work. Meaning, if there's a comment right above it saying something, it's going to start assuming whatever that comment says, it's going to say, okay, here's some code for what I think that comment is meaning I should make. So in this example, I wrote a comment that said v4 engine class. Immediately, it created this suggestion, which is correct, somewhat. We'll show here in a little bit, but class v4 engine extends the engine, and we overwrite the start method with saying we're a v4 engine instead of just an engine. So write a comment, and when you go to the next line, you'll see this code being suggested to you. Now you can do this inline as well, so if you're working in code, it can also generate some suggestions for you inline. It's not like you have to be on a new line by itself or whatever. Another great feature is if you don't like what it's telling you at first, that you can iterate through different suggestions. So squiggly diving board button and bracket will give you up and down, like if you're just moving back and forth, different suggestions here. So it's a good way, like if you kind of don't like the first one, you want to see what else it might suggest, you can just iterate through those next and previous sort of thing. So you can see here, I wrote this, and then I'm iterating through. By the way, the suggestions in this example are very poor. I've never heard of a V7 engine, but yeah.
It's actually not possible, really.
Yeah, right, now that I think about it. Unless you have one in the middle, maybe? Yeah. Okay. That's a great example of hallucination, though, right? You know, so it's just like, okay, you didn't like my first one? V7. We just invented an engine. What do you want from me? Yeah. So if you want to refactor code, you can also target code. So for example, we can highlight a chunk of code. In this, I just highlighted everything. And then we can ask it a question, and it will provide a suggestion of what it's going to edit, and then you can accept it. So just like we hit super button I, you just highlight so for example, this constructor, if we wanted to just edit this chunk of code, or let's say you have a very complicated function that this super cool developer put A for the variable names or B for the variable names, and you're like, I have no idea what's going on here. You can ask it, hey, refactor this and name it to what you think these should be. And I've actually had a lot of good luck with that. But again, what you're going to get out of Copilot is only good as what you put in, meaning your prompts need to be very explicit. The more explicit you are with your prompts, the better answers you're going to get. If you're just like, hey, go do stuff, it's too vague, it's going to make some assumptions for you that you may not like. There's also a suggestions panel in Copilot as well. So if you hit caret, I know that one, caret enter, it will open up this whole side panel part of the Copilot extension that will provide you different suggestions for where you're at. So for example, I think I just went here and just hit, hey, what should it create next? And here are the different suggestions. And we can click one of them and it'll apply it into here. So when things get a little complicated and you can't do it all in line with your code and you want it more off to the side sort of thing, you can use the suggestions panel to do that. There's also a chat sidebar in Copilot as well. I swear I'm not being paid by Copilot. We'll talk about some other ones here in a little bit. We've also got the chat icon. So where is it? Somewhere here. Oh yeah, right here. So you click that, and now just like ChatGPT, we can talk to it in a normal conversation fashion. So think of this as more like abstract conversations you want to have with AI, where it's not necessarily code, but you want to, understand a section of code. Where I think this is really cool is that you could actually have it explain the whole project to you, or let's say you're not familiar with a project. You could actually have it go digest the whole project and then tell you what it thinks the project is doing. Basically like synopsize what it believes is going on. There's also some other cool things in here where you can actually ask it how to do stuff in terminal. So for me, I know enough in CLI that I'm dangerous, but I'm not like a bash wizard by any means. This is really cool because you can say, hey, at terminal, how do I search a text file for this string or whatever, right? And it'll probably say grep and everybody's happy. But yeah, it's a really cool feature. And there's also like some debugging things in here I haven't messed with yet. It's experimental, but yeah. Right. So here I just said the whole workspace, you can do at workspace, meaning the whole project, explain what this does. And sure enough, it came up with this explanation of this whole car thing that we provided here. And now I'm writing, how can I search a text file? Oh yeah, this is a terminal thing I was talking about. So yeah, you can see here, then it gives me the grep. And that's how you use it. So it's a great way to learn as well. Like if you want to, especially when it comes to like regex or complicated stuff that makes me just start crossing my eyes, that stuff I love to throw at Copilot chat. So another thing that comes with Copilot is this feature where if you have a bug and it's highlighted with red, you can go and hover over it and click Quick Fix and click Quick Fix with Copilot. And Copilot then tries to figure out what's wrong, why is that an error? And then it explains it to you. Hey, it's because you don't have a use statement at the top of this. So, great feature as well. There's also terminal error debugging. So if you have an issue in the actual terminal itself, if you're running a command such as PHP unit, when I ran that, it said this wasn't found, this directory wasn't found, so then I used Copilot. You click these little stars here. If that's highlighted in blue, that means Copilot has something for you. You click that, and then it opens up the chat window and explains why this command failed in your CLI. So this is great, like especially if you use the terminal in your IDE, for whatever, running tests, pushing code, that sort of deal, and you run into an error, you can kind of leverage ChatGPT to figure out what's wrong. So sure enough, it told me, hey, you got to go in your autoload file and add this stuff. And sure enough, I didn't have it in there. There's also Copilot in GitHub itself. Copilot is kind of like confusing, actually, because Microsoft is using the term Copilot across all of their products, it seems like. So in Azure, in GitHub, and then this IDE one I just showed you, they basically just call it Copilot. In GitHub, there are some really cool features that you can use with Copilot, where you have, probably hard to see for some in the back, but there's this little guy here in github.com that you can click and use Copilot right there. So for example, you could ask github.com, go there and ask Copilot, hey, find a PHP package that integrates with Datadog. There was a guy that gave a talk at Datadog, and this was a shout out to him at the conference I was at. But sure enough, it digested all of the open source packages out on GitHub and gave me a write down of all of the different ones here. Just fantastic. This is a great way, like if you like, oh, I need a package that uses the Stripe API to check out for Python or whatever. What are the top ones or whatever? You can just use this built-in Copilot thing. I don't think you even have to pay for this. I think this might be a free thing, a part of, I don't know. Maybe you do actually, now that I think about it. Anyway, it's cool. Probably, I don't know how accurate though necessarily it would be. Like, I always get much better ideas from you folks than I do from AI. Like if I ask you, like, hey, is this package good or not? Usually I get the honest answer from you. I'm not sure if AI would do that. It would probably be very nice. It's like, it's a great package. Maybe its maintainers are kind of rude, but still. So why I was saying I'm so bullish on Microsoft's Copilot with Azure is because they're really pushing hard with integrating the whole ecosystem with Copilot. Now, this could also be an attack vector, I feel like, with hackers and things like that. In fact, while I was at the conference in Portland, B-Sides was happening across the street at Portland's University. So I bought a ticket and went and saw 2 talks there and then came right back and then went to the other conference. But the 2 talks I went to were about AI and the security implications of AI. Because now with companies, they're integrating AI into human resource departments, they're integrating AI into their customer service, and people are finding, hackers are finding ways to exploit it to do things they shouldn't do. For example, give me social security numbers of employees that, it tricks the AI into thinking it's, it should give that. Anyway. Pretty cool, but maybe dangerous. We'll see. I'm sure Microsoft already is aware of that. There's smart people there. Okay, so if you want to learn more, that's the URL. Just search Copilot. Yeah.
I don't know if this is outside the scope, but for the Azure, I get SQL Plus, where they're like running queries based on natural language. Is there any cost, like, hey, you can't do this, it'll cost too much? Because I know that, especially with Azure, if you're querying big data, the costs get astronomical really quickly. So, what would keep someone first day on the job running a query that, costs 10 grand?
So the question is, and I'm just repeating it for the video. If you have somebody new at the company and they're using SQL Plus and Azure and they ask the question that ends up doing a full table scan on a 1,000,000 row, table or something, and the costs shoot through the roof, are there controls to prevent that? I don't know. I haven't used the product enough to know if there are safeguards. I'd be very surprised if there weren't. But at the same time, AWS loves to trap you into thinking, oh yeah, it's only 4 cents an hour, and And then they are like, oh yeah, and there's egress costs and ingress costs and backward flip costs, yeah. So
Has rate limits on everything.
Azure has rate limits?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine, yeah, I mean.
So you wouldn't want to give that individual a margin quota.
Right. So you provision their user and give them the baby steps role, yeah. Shoot, I was going to say something about that, but it slipped my mind. Anyway, go research it and do a talk on that, though. How's that? Yeah. Okay. So other AI tools, well, this was a PHP thing. That was just because I was at a PHP conference. This is a llama at an airport. Apparently at Portland, they have therapy llamas that you can request. So if you are feeling sad and you're at the Portland airport, go find the llama. Apparently they're trained not to spit at you. So
The llamas are at the airport?
yeah, not all the time though, but yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, it's cool. It was I dug it. I think it's been recently remodeled though. I didn't see it before.
It's gross.
Yeah, we'll talk later. Installing and configuring Ollama. So Ollama's, thank you, Cody, who disappeared. Oh no, you're in the back. Okay, you moved. So he did a talk on Ollama months ago, and this really intrigued me because the idea of all this AI stuff is great, but it's expensive, right? Ollama was the open source version of all of this stuff that I was looking for. So essentially, you can go to Ollama and install we'll call it basically, it feels a lot like Docker. In fact, it probably under the hood is essentially Docker. Not 100% sure, I haven't gone that far into it, but we're going to talk about a step-by-step guide on Ollama. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can find open source models and leverage those. So you can go to ollama.com, OAAAMA.com, and simple download. It works for all the big 3 OSs. Once you install it, you get this cute little llama. I'll show you here, or I can't show you. I'll show you when I go to the demos part of all of this. But there's no GUI for it. That's what tripped me up at first when I installed this. I was expecting to see like Docker has like a GUI that shows you what's running and all that. There's no GUI, at least for now. All you see is this little llama sitting in your taskbar. He's cute, but you have to interact with this through CLI. So there's like basically CLI commands where you're saying like, go spin this model up or whatever, or go, it's very Docker, right? Pull, push, that you'll see a lot of similarities there with some Docker commands. So if you want to install it, there's this little command here for Linux or Windows. Yeah, you just download it. Yeah, and there's a Docker image for it as well. Once you run Ollama in your CLI, you can just run this and see all the different flags or excuse me, commands you can run. It feels very much like Docker. Pull, push, stop, run, show me the list of all the models running, that sort of deal. You can copy a model. The part of this that I want to play with, and this is kind of like the more advanced one that I haven't done yet, is take a model, add more data to it, so like post-training, whatever we want to call it, massage it, and then create a new, export the model and put it into the cloud. Like that's the part I haven't covered with this talk yet, and the part that I want to research how to do. Oh yeah, here's that cute llama right here. Make sure it's up to date, because when I did this talk, it wasn't up to date and nothing was working, and I was like running around the hotel room like losing my mind, and all I needed to do was update because it wasn't working. Yeah. Nothing worse than everything frying up right before your tutorial. Well, there's much worse, but anyway. So Llama 3.2 is Meta, aka Facebook's open source model that they created. It's got different versions of it. So it's got a 1 billion parameter, a 3 billion, 11 billion, or 90 billion. So you can download this model and use it locally, but it will be quite large, even at 1 billion. There are smaller models that you can download that are more designed for specific tasks. So for example, with coding, there's one called CodeStral that you can download that's quite small. And when we say small, it's still like gigabytes, but it's not like terabytes, right? It's runnable on a local machine. The bigger the models are, the slower it will be. And again, it was Cody that was telling me that and did not understand that at first. So again, I'm learning from you guys, and it's just this circle that we're doing here. So to run a model, you just run Ollama run and then the model name. So if you want, and just like Docker, where you have tags for the different amount of parameters that you want in the model, you put colon and then the amount of tags. So same deal here. When you run Ollama list, you see all of your different models that you have downloaded. They don't necessarily mean that they're running, but the ones that you've already pre-downloaded. So there's StarCoder, that's a good one if you want to take a look at something that's a little bit more lean. As you can see, it's 1.7 gigs. Then we've got CodeStral. I think that's the way to pronounce it. 12 gigs, a lot bigger, but a little bit smarter than the StarCoder. And again, these are trained with specific languages. So if you're using a particular language, try to find a model, and I'll show you how to find a model here in a second, for that language. For example, this one actually had Fortran, and I was like, I don't even think I've seen Fortran code in my life, but yeah, it can do it. And then this is that Llama one I was talking about that Meta Facebook made. And this was something I was messing with the image stuff. Anyway, so you just run Ollama run and then the name of the model and it'll download it. It takes some time. Obviously, they're large images, but once you download them, you're good. They're cached. And then once you run this, it downloads it, it then runs the model, and you're just gonna see this, and you're gonna be like, okay, what now? Well, this is literally like ChatGPT. At this point, you have a prompt. So you can start asking it questions if you want, but for the specific use case of coding, now I'm gonna show you how to take Ollama and plug it into your IDE to do the same features we saw that Copilot did as a paid product, but now for free. So this is just a quick example, like the prompt start. I said, tell me a joke about the PHP programming language. Of course, I spelled language wrong. And then it said, here's one. Why did the PHP script go to therapy? Because it had a lot of echoes from its past and was struggling to include itself in the present. It literally admitted that it's a bad pun too, but I hope it brought a smile to your face. So, fantastic. Thank you, Meta, for, well, they use PHP, so who knows? Maybe that was already kind of, not anymore. What do they use now?
Well, they used to use PHP, but actually compile it into C, and they stopped doing that.
Period, yeah. Okay. Anyway,
Josh,
yeah.
how much computer power do you need to run this? Like a regular computer can do this, or?
Yeah, my laptop here runs some of the typical models. The problem is if you use like the CodeStral, like for example this CodeStral one here, I can run it, but it takes a long time for it to give you back a response. Some minutes, With the smaller ones, they're super quick. Like StarCoder is pretty quick. You'll get responses back very, very fast.
There's some motors with it. There's some models with this that require that are like compiled for a GPU or TPU.
I think that's an Ollama thing, right? Like, don't you tell it?
It figures it out when you download it. Let's see if you have a GPU or if it's in the CPU phase, and it will download the proper model for that.
Okay.
But also in the case, the reason why CodeStral runs so slow is it has to load all 12 gigs into memory. If you don't have enough memory, it will start to swap.
That's probably what's going on.
That'll slow you way down. Also, if you're doing it CPU based, it'll be slow. Graphics card will be faster.
And when you say loaded in memory, for the GPU model, that's VRAM, then, or
I'm not certain.
No.
no?
Only the equations that are running need to be in the GPU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just know that if you have like a M-chip MacBook, since they come with GPUs out of the box, it tends to be fairly low. I've not tested on Windows or anything else like that. So my experience is Mac only.
Yeah. I think this is an M1 or something. I don't know. I have an M chip, and yeah, I know for a fact this one's super speedy. But then when I run this one, I'm having to wait a couple minutes. We saw that at the last talk actually I gave before I changed to the smaller model. When I originally did this talk a couple of months ago, everybody was like, "Why is it taking so long?" And then Cody's like, "Bro, you're running a."
Reference,
Yeah.
I was using a model that's fairly new. I think it's like 60 gigabytes, and I was on a 4090 on PC. It's really good, but it would take like 5, sometimes 10 minutes to recode everything. So it took us a long time, but its quality was actually pretty good.
Well, I'll mention a couple of things here too about how we can fix that. And fix it by meaning pay money, but yeah. Okay. So yeah, we talked about this, we did that. Okay, now how do we find these AI models? Again, shout out Cody, you rock. There's a website, and this is wrong, it's not .io, I think it's .com. But just Google Hugging Face. There is a website called Hugging Face, and it has literally it's the GitHub of models, AI models. So you've got text to image, image to text models, text to video models. And the list is huge. And then obviously the coding models we just talked about are in here as well. I played around with a couple of them, like the text to image generation. And again, it's free. I mean, you download these models. There's a couple of open source applications you can install that you say, okay, point at this model, and then you can just have it generate an image right on your local machine without having to do anything outside on ChatGPT or wherever else. Obviously, those are probably faster, arguably better, but still. The cooler part of this is, again, you could take these models, and these are great models to perhaps use for internal use cases, creating startups. There's a lot of innovation that's going to come out of all of this. So, in fact, I'll talk a little bit about that more here in a second. But anyway, yeah, tons of different ones for our use case. We can just, I just typed in coding models, and I found a couple of them that I tested with. But there's also data sets. Not just models, but data sets in Hugging Face as well. So if you're training models, this is super helpful to have sample, like training data that you can download and use to train the models as well. So it's not just models, but you can also host data sets as well. So these are the big ones. We talked about StarCoder, and then we talked about Ollama. There are a bunch of other ones out there too. For example, Mistral, I hear, is very good. Claude is very good. GPT just released a new preview image that apparently is mind-blowing. That's very good as well. So I would say if you want to run something locally, StarCoder is probably a good one to look at. But if you're okay with paying the money, take a look at Mistral, Claude, or GPT. Those three, I think, are the ones I've heard the most good things about. There's obviously a lot of other ones. I'm sure each one has its own pros and cons. But
For OpenAI, you're talking about O1?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's why I was hesitant to say it because I'm like, 01 sounds like earlier version. But in the podcast I was listening to, where they were talking to, I think it was the Claude guys that made that, and they were saying 01 like they're like, run for the money sort of thing. Okay. Yeah, Anthropic. That's the company. I heard they have a pretty good podcast there if you want to hear that. Anyway, let's see. Yeah, these are all of these different models here. You can see there's a ton of them. There's a list out there that I pulled this from. Forgot where. Oh, I think it was on Ollama had a article and had these lists out. This is probably already outdated, to be honest, but yeah. So kind of a list of the top ones like we just talked about. GPT-4, there's the 01 preview model that just came out. If you want to look at open source, you don't want to pay out of pocket. Just know that like Mistral, for example, if you use it for commercial purposes, you have to pay, but you can download it and use it for free, but the code that you're making can't be used for commercial purposes, but you could use it. So anyway, so just read the licenses and just know what you're getting yourself into. But CodeLlama is very good, and then CodeStrel or StarCoder. CodeStrel is also, if you're got like if it's on a laptop, you don't have GPUs and stuff, I would probably stick to the smaller ones. Okay. So yeah, we talked a little bit about this already. This is kind of another slide that's regurgitating the same thing. But for this example, you'll see in the repo, the example I'm using CodeLlama, which is a 7 billion parameter one. Okay, there are different models for types of coding tasks. So for example, there's chat, there's autocomplete, like what we were showing with Copilot, where it was trying to like predict what you're trying to code. There's refactoring, like editing, things like that, editing code, or there's actions that it can take on as well. Each one of these subsectors can be configured to use a different model. Well, it's like grouped into two different ones actually, but I'll show you here in a second how you can use Ollama to configure it with one of those. But yeah, outside of coding, I downloaded this thing, this draw things thing here, and I plugged it into a local model that I did, and you can see it churning through the image, and it was making me an image of a PHP elephant. And this is what it made. It didn't have PHP on it though. I will say we did it with GPT-4 and it looked a lot better. And it said PHP on the side. Okay. CodeStrel, yep, talked about that. So here's, we'll do Ollama run CodeLlama and then :7b for the smaller version of it. And this is where you'll see it downloads it. Takes a while. Hotel Wi-Fi was slow. I was starting to stress. And then you could opt for a SaaS version as well. And that's where I guess I'm getting at, is a lot of these open source models have a paid version that run in the cloud. So, or even better yet, you could take these open source models, spin up your own GPU EC2, install it there, and run these internally on your own AI model hosted machine. Maybe.
If you can get resources, then they'll give them to you.
True.
They're
Right.
hard to get.
It's very expensive. Yeah.
But even if people give them all.
Really.
Yeah.
Well, to run something as like Ollama, it's probably not that bad.
If you want something that has GPU or TPU, there's restrictions that you may not be able to get.
Oh. Well, years and years ago there wasn't, because I remember somebody like, yeah. Anyway. Moving on. Here I am, I ran CodeLlama, the 7b one. Again, we have this prompt. I said, hey, create me a hello world in PHP. And sure enough, it spit that out. Big deal. Again, if you want to use a small model, this is what I would suggest. Some of the commercial solutions out there, this is in the tutorial or in that repo, but I show Mistral and then I show Anthropic. These are the two big ones aside from like GPT that are worthy to take a look at. I've heard a lot of good things about Anthropic. Okay, so that was all cool. We were shown like how to talk to it in CLI, but how do I actually get Ollama installed into my IDEs to make it practical for me? Introducing continue.dev. There's a plugin that is free that you can install for either JetBrains or VS Code. I'm sure there's other extensions coming out as well in the future, where you basically can now install this and have it point at your local Ollama instance. So you would go whatever, VS Code, install the plugin, and then you'll see something like this: continue, CodeStral, Claude, that, whatever. Click install, and once it's installed, you're like, okay, cool, but like, how to actually get this thing to work? Well, you gotta click that. So just click that little gear guy, and then this will pop up. This is the JSON config for continue.dev, and this is where the meat and potatoes is of how to configure this extension in your IDE. This is where you tell it what model to use, and you can see here I say use code llama 7B. So I have that running. I ran that in CLI. That model is running, and now that I have this dictating, hey, use this, it's going to go use that model for any time it needs to do that particular task. But there is a separate configuration for the autocomplete model. So there are subsections of this where you can say use this model for this or use that model for that. I believe you can even specify multiple models here. And this drop down here, you can select the different models. So if you want to A/B test a couple of different models, you can put a couple of different models in here. You can put commercial ones in here too. You can put GPT, you can put all the different ones. And let's say you're dealing with something where you don't want to pay GPT to compute because it's super simple, you know your local thing can do it. Flip this over to your local instance, have it run that, and you're not paying anything. Versus if you want to run something that's more complex and you want to get a better answer perhaps, that's where you could switch it to use a commercial LLM. There are also some other things in here in the config itself where you can do slash commands. So if you want to add your own commands into continue, you can do that as well. Where's that part? Yeah. There's another one in here. I think I will get to it a little later. Or did I skip over it? I'll show it later. But anyway, there's a section in here as well where you can do prompts. So you can have like there's one in here called tests. But when you read into that config, you see this long prompt where it says like, please give me tests that are, and it's being very explicit. That way it gets a better answer again, right? So if you have very large prompts that you want to turn into small commands to run quickly, you can do that here in the config as well. Defaults are set to local, so when you first install continue, it's going to be just using your local Ollama instance, but by default it does use a large model, so just make sure you go in there and edit it. I do have in that repo that I showed in the beginning an example continue dev that you can copy and put into your project that has a small model that will run quickly, as well as some of the commercial ones that you can just throw in your own API key in there and you're done. Those will just work out of the box. So if you want to learn more, there's a whole bunch of documentation Continue has that you can learn about different models to set up. For example, if I want to run Claude You just need to take this chunk of JSON, put it back into where we just saw, and just put your API key here, and it will now go use cloud resources, and you'll get much faster responses and all that kind of good stuff. But there are also a bunch of different models in here that you can take a look at. There's GPT 4o. Here are the local ones you can run if you don't want to use one of the paid ones. What else? That's it. Okay. Oh yeah, so I'm just showing you here. This is how you would do multiple models. So I have Ollama, my local one, and then I have Claude. And yeah, you just essentially can define multiple models here if you want. And then this tab autocomplete model, that one is kind of like, okay, you can only have one set because you're in your IDE, you're in your file editing, you can't like quickly switch. So you would just have to go into your config and tell it which one to use when you want the whole tab autocomplete. But the chat features, the like editing stuff, all that stuff outside of tab autocomplete is done. You can switch that stuff to different models. So a live demo.
Sure.
Yes.
Is it possible to have like a dedicated machine on my local network to run that and then access from different computers there? Or do I have to have?
Yeah, you would just need to specify like IP port sort of thing, right? What?
Ollama already starts serving at a specific port, so as long as you open that up to your local internet, you can connect to it through and
You've done an Ollama run, but there's Ollama serve.
Ollama, okay, there you go. Yeah, I haven't used that one.
Yeah, you have a port at that point in time.
Okay, there's the answer. So instead of run, you would just do Ollama serve, and then yeah, have your Raspberry Pi try to run this. Start seeing it smoke. I'm gonna dive because I have more slides, and there's only like 9 more slides. So I'm gonna jet through the rest of the slides. Then I'll come back to this and show you the IDE, and that way I don't have to rush through the slides at the end here. ChatGPT basically is kind of my go-to, to be honest. Like it's a solid one that I've used, and it has possibly the most advanced. Oh, now, mind you, it's expensive, and I think I have a video here in a sec. Yeah, I think so. But anyway, it's worth it, I feel like. I mean, I've asked this thing life questions, like, hey, how do I handle, my son, and things like that. I feel weird asking that kind of stuff, but at the same time, I want to gut check myself. Most of the time, it tells me the same thing my wife tells me. Maybe my wife is ChatGPT. Okay, so practical examples for ChatGPT. What I love about it, in fact, I'm going through this thing that's kind of like FedRAMP, StateRAMP. It's this huge security thing, and I'm having ChatGPT kind of help me generate some documentation. Obviously, I have to provide decent stuff and then, read through what it generates to gut check it. But still, writing a lot of fancy words and stuff, it does very good at. Debugging code, like I mentioned, obviously. Learning new tools and languages. For example, I got tossed into a project where they're like, go build a Azure pipeline. I've built pipelines before, but never in Azure. And so I said, hey, ChatGPT, buddy, like, how do I do this? And sure enough, I mean, it got 80% of it right. It actually made some wild assumptions of like things that didn't even exist in Azure. But when I was like, hey, this doesn't even exist, it was like, oh, I'm sorry, maybe try this. And anyway, through a little bit of back and forth. Again, the point of this stuff, it's not like, hey, it's gonna go do your work for you. It's gonna lead you in the right direction. You still need to understand the code that it's giving you. Because bottom line, if we let all of this progress to a point where it's just writing stuff itself and we're never reviewing it, then this will become a black box for sure, right? Nobody will understand how to fix something when something goes wrong. I'll also use it for RAG. So I've uploaded things like images, uploaded things like spreadsheets, You can give it websites now, and it will fetch information. And just like that RAG model we spoke about, you can have supplemental information to get a better answer on things. Okay, the one cool product that's out there, I think there's another one I just heard of. I mean, shoots, this is probably already out of date. There's whole space is going so quickly, but one of them that's cool is called GPT Engineer. And essentially what it is it's a tool that you can install on your local machine that uses the API for GPT, but you can actually have it generate an entire project. One thing I found about like all of this stuff when it first came out, it was like, cool, it can edit the file I'm in, but what if I wanted to like build the model, build the associated classes, go have it do all this other stuff? Like, you're dealing with 6 or 7 files. I'm not dealing with just one file. Like, how do I get this thing out of the box? And this is where GPT Engineer starting, and again, this is not perfect. It's still got some quirks, but this is kind of the thing I was looking for as far as like either refactoring or generating a greenfield project. So you can download GPT Engineer. Again, it's like a little CLI tool that you use. I'll show that here in a second as well. And then there's Cursor SH. So let's say all of that stuff, you're like, hey Josh, that was way too much noise. I don't know how to do any of that. I just want AI, and I want it in my IDE, and I'm happy to pay. Then Cursor SH is probably your way to go. If you just want something that works out of the box, and it's configurable still, but it's good, then this is probably something to take a look at. So there are, and there's others that are out there too in that space that are kind of competing, but that's the big one out there right now that I've heard good things about. I haven't used that. There is a trial I've been using, and it's good, but I still like my GPT-4. And I'm happy with that. Copilot's good too, though, I will say, for the price. We talked about it, but like RAG, that sort of deal. But the one note I wanted to make here was this last slide, or last comment here at the bottom. You can host these models on things like AWS. Yes, fighting for resources is a problem. Or you can take a look at Replicate. This is a really cool site. Again, they don't run all the models, but if there's like a specific popular model that you like, then I screwed everything up just now. Hang on.
You can also host on, Hugging Face has their own workspaces where you can host it too.
Hugging Face does as well? I did not know that.
Yeah,
okay.
revenue stream.
That would make sense. Yeah, it's like Packagist or whatever, right? Yeah, duh. I should have thought of that. Okay, yeah, so you can also use Hugging Face. Yeah, I should have added that there. In fact, I would say probably try to use Hugging Face. Probably works easier. But I've heard good things about Replicate. The reason I heard about Replicate, this guy was just getting like slammed with AI costs, and people were like, this whole space is crazy. His costs were doubling even though his usage wasn't, and they were just like, deal with it. And he was like, this is crazy. And so he went to these guys at Replicate who's like, hey, can you run this? And they gave him a good price. And so from what I've heard, I heard good things about Replicate. That is spelt wrong because I just clicked it and it went to this domain is for sale. So this is where things go off the tracks a little bit. There's quantum artificial intelligence that companies like Google, Microsoft, IBM, NVIDIA are starting to work on. Think of this as like solving cancer, blowing up asteroids before they hit us, like the crap that we really want computers to save us, right? So there's some interesting developments in this space. It's obviously very new and there's not a lot to show for what's been going on here, but it promises that it can remove the limitations on data size, complexity, and the speed in which its problem solves. So this is promising. A breakthrough in this space would leave the current AI revolution in the dust. And then we're going to go really off the tracks. We're taking this thing off the tracks. Organoid intelligence. So there's a company called Final Spark that has taken human cells and they're attempting to create CPUs off of, like, basically making like a brain CPU. And what's even more creepy is if you go to this URL here, finalspark.com/live, you can see it at work. It's, yeah, kind of weird. I don't know if it's fake or real. Because from what I've read, it looks legit. Like, it looks like they're trying to. Okay, and the reason that this might be something to, like, maybe this actually has some legs, is it promises to use less energy than traditional computing does, right? If you can feed it a Big Mac, and then it just, like, tells you, you know. Okay. I just want to leave you with this, that ask yourself, go to Hugging Face and play around with some of the models. Just download them and just, like, mess with them. Because this is where I'm super excited for a lot of innovation, is it's going to come out of some of these models. Obviously, you need to train them and add some things on top. But for example, this guy, Peter Levels, he's been making a startup he's been making like one company every 3 months. And out of the 70 he's built, only 8 or 9 have succeeded, but he's now making $900,000 a month, something crazy like that. But they're all AI related. He has a photo generating AI one, an interior design AI one, applicant AI, some like maybe job sort of thing. There's a hotels one. Anyway, crazy, right? And he's just using these models to, like, try different ideas and see what sticks.
And that one on the same EC2.
Yeah, and they're all, in fact, you were the one that sent me this. Yeah, thank you, Manny. Yeah, you had a question?
Well, I do have to wonder when, because a lot of this stuff is, they're fine-tuned models, they're built on the backs of giants right now. And so we're all, like, very much benefiting from the fact that, like, there's decent open source data sets out there, companies are willing to burn money to get us as customers. Like, I do sort of wonder is eventually, because we're looking at, like, how much money it's costing to train the next models and how much data it's requiring. Eventually, like, well, what if they just decide that, nah, we don't want to give you access to these models to fine tune anymore. And pretty much then it's only the big boys that are going to play. And you don't get to sort of, like, you don't get to have your small projects as much anymore, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I do sort of wonder.
Of course. Think about it. I mean, if there is a guy that wants to rule the world, it's probably at one of these companies right now, right? Like, where it gets really dangerous, there's this, like, consortium thing. I don't know too much about it, but I heard this podcast with the guy at Anthropic where they are very nervous about the potential that this thing could leak nuclear, like how to build a nuclear missile, right? Or whatever, for national defense reasons, things like that. Like, these things are super smart, right? Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't it be able to tell you, you know?
I'm just even wondering, sort of like, if it's going to get to the point where OpenAI spends so much money and has so much data that they, you know, ChatGPT 5 is far and away better than even a specialized or tweaked version of Ollama or, you know, any of the other open source models, that you're just like, well, as someone building a product, I can't compete with that anymore because the generalized models are so good, simply based on just the raw computing power that can be thrown at the problem. And
that's a good point.
The amount of money that can be used, like the amount of money that can be used to hoover up the data.
So you're absolutely right. So the con here is this guy's making a killing, but then in 6 months and then his product sucks. Yeah. One interesting thing in his talk or this podcast, he is using this one, it's image diffuser, something diffuser. I think it's just called diffuser. There's like an image model, and he doesn't like the newer versions because the images that it generates aren't as cool. They don't look as good as like V2 Like, so he's like using an older version on purpose because it looks better. He feels like the newer versions are being more like, I don't know, censored or something like that. But anyway, my point is you know, even the versions of these models are changing so drastically, right? And it's probably the training data. In fact, a part of the problem, one of his biggest ones is you give it a photo of yourself and you say, turn me to a cowboy. And so it spits out cowboys, you know, me with a cowboy hat. Problem is, when he first made this, it would spit me out with a cowboy, but I'd be completely naked. Apparently, all of these models are trained on like nude model sets and things like that. And so he had to then take the image and pass it through Google Vision to see if it was work safe or not. And then that way he wouldn't be showing you inappropriate images.
Have you trained a model from a data set, like just
Me?
base? Yeah.
No, I have not. No. Yeah. I'd love to. I'm just at the beginning of this journey. Yeah.
Something I can tell you though, right, is that general models are great for kind of doing stuff and kind of knowing things. Like, so if you have a friend that's an insufferable know-it-all, who really thinks they know something, they will give you an answer whether they know it or not, because they feel they need to give you an answer. That's what general AI is. If it is very certain that it is right, then it is absolutely wrong. But if you need something that is accurate, you need generalized models need help, but they can only get you so far. They get you to about 60 to 80% in my experience. To get from 80 to 100, well, to get to 80 to 90, right, you just fine tuning and tuning on your particular your context, but then you're going to have to, like, the fact that it knows all this other stuff gets in the way of it doing it well. Right? So it's like you've got someone who goes to college for a 4-year degree knows something about a lot of things, but you've got to kind of forget all that stuff when you get your PhD and focus on something. Right? So a model that is super focused is going to do one thing very well. So like ideal products, and currently I'm letting OpenAI subsidize all of my work because they charge me next to nothing for model time. But at some point I'll have to move on with it. Right? Because getting it to 80% is already 50% better than the humans that do the work. But at some point, I'm going to be competing against other models. So it's going to have to get from the 90% to 100%. That's what I just start hiring data scientists.
Okay. Okay, before we dive into some demos here, we only have about 30 minutes left. Was there any questions before we kind of go into some demos here? By the way, training models, that is a great talk. If somebody wants to do that, I would love that talk. So I think I just volunteered you to do that, but okay.
I'm actually wondering, like, if you wanted to start from like brass tacks, say like, let's see if I can teach myself how to train a model from the beginning. Does that mean like you're literally training it how to? Is that even possible? Like, if I'm training the model how to understand human language, and then you want to train it on a certain subject.
I think what's more practical is post-training, right? Like you would take a model and then that, right?
Right.
Well, the data sets are not honey. Like the tools are on honey.
Right.
If you say, I want to teach a moderately simple model how to understand something, like you can just use the Hugging Face tool and use their open data sets.
Yeah.
And you can train something how to interact in the language.
Because like I've gone through this process of the basic Google lesson. I'm like, oh, you want to train a model for just an ML. Like
Right.
that's pretty straightforward. But when we talk about
You like PyTorch or
large language models, I mean, that's what I've always been really curious about. You go onto Hugging Face and it's like, oh, look, we have 1 million models. When you dive deep and you're like, okay, how many base models do we have? How many of those are some submodels are of those base models? And what is their equation?
If I can interject as a model, if you want to, if you're trying to train a huge set of data, then you probably want to train your own Ollama. But if you're using the information that's smaller than a gigabyte, you're almost certainly going to use red.
Yeah.
So you're not going to train. you're not going to refine, you're not going to be training a whole model from scratch for most users. That's something that probably is definitely appropriate.
And you would be able to afford it.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to get at. Yeah.
Your power bill would put you bankrupt before.
Well, it's the sheer amount of data. In fact, that's a big contention right now, is the usage rights that these companies have over the training data that they're using. There's a lot of arguments right now that they're just like pulling anything and everything off the web that they may not have the right to use without like permission. But it's the Wild West right now, where it's just like suck it all in, and so yeah.
You mentioned like building a nuclear missile. Is there the models and stuff, they're standardized, right? The ones that are on the web. Place you go to
Yeah.
They don't are quite as standardized. Like, suppose you want, I don't know, this is Las Vegas. Suppose you wanted to, I don't know, cheated cards or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the microphone and the FBI listening on here might have just picked up what you said, and they might be on their way, Devin. I'm not sure. Yeah, that was a very sus question. Suppose if I wanted to build a nuclear missile in my garage. No, I mean that's actually one of the big things I was listening on this podcast about. Was like, it's not just that, but like. Bioweapons, like there's potentially like, because especially I from what I hear in the bio whatever space, this is like really big right now, like like science in general, not like data science, but I'm talking about science, right? Like AI is there's a lot of potential to really have it do some amazing research, like help be basically an assistant to these scientists and researchers, right? So, but in that sense, they try to ask these dodgy questions to see what it gives back, but that's not to say that there's ways to trick the model to then give the right answer, right? For example, they've sanitized these models that, it tries to be nice and PC, but they've got it to say some very deplorable things by just tricking it, saying, hey, my grandmother used to be, this and that, and she used to read me bedtime stories, and she used to tell me this story, and then it was like, oh, okay, I'll tell you, and yeah. So there's some possibilities, and that's a black box thing. That's the scary part about all of this. It's very much like, what is it doing, right? So when those Tesla bots, when they build those and they're walking around and you're staring into its deep black mirror face, and you're like thinking, what is this thing going to do? Is it going to kill me or not? Who knows, right? Although Elon said they will not run over 10 miles an hour, so there's that, but someone will hack one, if anything.
Even if I wanted to build a nuclear missile, I don't really have the ability to enrich uranium or get a hold of uranium, so
I know a guy. What are you talking about? Okay, so yeah, we got a little bit of time. I'll show. What would you folks want to see? Do you want to see? Might have time for both. Let's just try to squeeze both in real quick. Okay, so I'm going to show GPT Engineer. And I'm actually going to show it instead of hiding it. Sorry, hang on. Whoop. And new vertical. And then, okay, whatever. I'll just run it over here. Okay, everybody close your eyes. Okay, you saw nothing? Yeah. It's not live, luckily. Yeah. You got a $1,000 bill. Yeah. Is it? Oh. You know what sucks? If you're at somewhere like DEF CON or something, I'm toast already. But hopefully you guys are good people, yeah, and girls.
But
Yeah.
just change your people.
I will. Okay, it's going to YouTube, though, for sure at that point, yeah. Okay, so let me show you. I just wanted to get it over here because it was kind of hard to see. Okay, so Fox AI, GPT. Okay. So I just made a folder just now called RaffleBot, where I'm going to make a bot that'll do the raffle for the JetBrains license. Okay. So by raise of hands, who is interested in the JetBrains license? Okay. Okay. So I was just making sure there's more than one person because doing a raffle for one person is boring. Okay. So we have no code right now, empty directory. So I'm going to do a magic trick. We're gonna make a raffle bot. We're gonna write. So as you saw, that I just completely leaked my OpenAI key for ChatGPT. I put that into my environment variable because I'm going to use ChatGPT to create this project for me, and it's facilitating that through what we call GPT Engineer, GPTE. So we're going to hit GPTE, we're going to hit go, and then there's a prompt. Oh, I forgot one step. Sorry. We need to make a prompt file in here. So let me go back into this example. I'll show you here. So you make a file called prompt, and then you just put in what you want into this file. And then GPT reads that file. So let's go back to Raffle. Vim prompt. Make me a raffle script where I can put how many people are entered and randomly pick a number. Should I give it a language? Should I tell it what? Does anybody? TypeScript? Oh my God, you're killing me, Smalls. Huh?
That's what it picks.
It'll pick Python, I bet. Just because. Fortran? No? Okay. Okay. Pick written in Pascal? I don't even know if I could run that. Yeah. Let's do Python because at least we're not sitting here debugging crap all night. Okay, so we've got our prompt file there. Now we run GPTE, and it's thinking. At least yeah, there we go. Wait, why didn't you read my prompt? Did I not save that correctly? Whatever. Let's go back here. Cat prompt. Okay. Take that. You read it. Copy. Paste. I don't know why I didn't read that. Maybe there's a flag I'm missing. Whatever. Okay, so it just made a call to OpenAI, and it's doing stuff. It's explaining what it's going to do. This is basically just like when you're looking at ChatGPT. And so what GPT Engineer is able to do is take these chunks of code and actually like strip out like the explanation pieces of it and put that into your project to actually create the project. So do I want to execute this? Yes. So now it's just saying you can run, wait, hold on. Note, if this does not work, expect to consider in another way. You can press Control-C once to stop the execution. There are no dependencies required. We can just run the Python script directly. So is it done?
That's where it puts the prompt on.
Do you want to just hit no, right? Yeah, no, okay. Okay, that cost me 3 cents. So I accept donations. But yeah, this is interesting. Yeah, I mean, the most I've gotten to was like $1.50, but I was having to do refactoring on a huge project, not creating something from scratch or as simple as this. But this can get quite expensive. But I'll show you in a second, but you can give it existing code to then go refactor stuff.
Can you put it in a penny to do something?
You can put a what?
Costs 4 cents to do something?
Excuse?
It costs 4 cents to do that?
Yeah.
That's expensive.
GPT 4 Turbo.
I mean, it really is expensive, right?
Can you plug in like 4 mini?
models, I have like $1,
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes,
Because there's a way, because when I first started using this, I had to use a preview image. There was a way I like went in and actually, because this was when 4 was in preview, I actually enabled the thing and then was able to use the 4 preview. But yes, you can. There's a way to do it. Okay, so let's take a look. Let's just look at the code real quick. Clear, cap. It said something's in here called Python, right? Okay, I assume it's in this projects directory, hopefully. Example. There we go. Okay, cat, raffle, Python. So, it actually like got fancy with this, huh? It said there was no dependencies, but I'm so I have to do this run probably.
Well, you don't have to. You just do Python raffle as well.
Python raffle. .py. Enter the number of participants. Okay, everybody raise their hand again. Okay, I'm going to tell you your number and then just remember it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Okay, so we have 7. One. Hold on, I gotta look at this code real quick.
So cat, raffle, draw. Make sure it's actually doing what you think it's doing.
It's always 1.
Okay. Raffle, draw. Random. Yeah. Wait. Well, that's a start, right? Start to random.
Participant from 1 to 7, or we put it.
But why does it say Adam always wins in here? Congratulations, Adam.
They run the Python group.
Yeah. It's just like detecting flaws. Yeah, I should turn the microphone off on my thing. Okay, so that's GPT Engineer. The other flag I wanted to show you is there's a way to have it edit code instead of generate greenfield stuff. So if we go back into here, because I don't remember the command, GPT, and then we can say -I. So let's try this. So we're in the project. I'm going to do GPT -I to improve the code in this directory and where we're at. And then I don't know, I might have to edit the prompt file. I don't know. Let's see what it does. Yeah, so when we run this, we have to tell it which files we want it to read. The more files that you expose to this, the more it's going to cost you, because it's literally having to take all these files and send them up to, but before I do that, just because I'm not sure if it uses the prompt file or not, I'm going to double check and I'm going to put in here, I'm going to put rig the raffle to always have 1 win. Okay, and we'll go GPT-I, so let's do it again. And I'm just going to give it all the files, just so we're not leaving anything out. Probably really only needed the raffle parts, but whatever.
The prompt may confuse it.
Huh? Oh, the prompt, I don't think yeah, shoots. Pull up. Okay. Actually, let's just keep it simple. Let's just do this. We don't need all that, right? In fact, we probably don't need yeah, let's do that. Let's see if it can get that. Okay. So it's looking at this. And there, it just did return 1. Yeah. That cost me another cent. Damn. Okay. So yeah, that's how you improve. You can use this thing to do that, and that's cool. We all like that, right? Okay. The other demos are related to continue.dev. We only have a few minutes here, though, so I'm just gonna like tear through them real quick, and then because I want to leave a couple minutes here to chat about a few things here. Okay, in fact, the only thing I really want to show is just the config file again, because I think all the videos I showed pretty much had everything that you need to know there. It's not much groundbreaking besides that. But again, if you want to like dive into some of the examples, what I would say is once you install Continue, what's cool about it is it gives you an example that teaches you how to use Continue in just a few minutes. So when you install Continue, this file pops up, but it's in Python. I rewrote it to PHP because I was at a PHP conference. But it will literally say, okay, part 1, learn how to ask a question about the code. It'll tell you, okay, highlight this and press this. And so if you want to do that, just download Continue. This will automatically pop up and it walks you right through. It's super, super easy. The only confusing part about it is how to configure Continue. And that's where you need to not be in this one. Hang on, I'm in the wrong one, I think. Wait. Yeah, I've got Copilot on this one. My bad. Hang on. Okay, here. JetBrains, our favorite IDE. So I have it on here. So you'll see this little logo. This is Continue. You can open it up. You can see where I was asking questions about this. And then this little gear icon. So that part just tripped me up a little bit. I just wanted to show that. But this is the config here. Again, at least you don't have my full key this time. But this is how I configured GPT 4.0, how I configured Claude. And when you're talking to it, you can see this drop down here. I can swap between the different models. So again, if you don't want to get charged 3 cents every time, whatever, you can just use code Ollama locally. But then if you want it to really have some horsepower behind it, yeah, that one for sure I need to change. I basically need to change all my API keys. Okay, the part that I do want to show though, oh yeah, this. So yeah.
I noticed in your OpenAI, if you scroll down just a little bit, no, the other way. Yeah, I think your GPT-4o OpenAI model is blank.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think you just need to do the title here. I don't think, because even in the examples it gave, this was blank. I think it's just based off of the title. So if you want to use like that 1.0 preview, you can put basically the name of the model here in the title rather than down here.
And if you put Dash Mini, it'll be a lot cheaper, but you might not get as good results.
Dash Mini, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Mini's like 1/10 the price.
Sometimes it actually does better.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take a look at that. I haven't messed with the Mini one. Oh yeah, the custom commands thing. So I just wanted to point this out. This is that thing I was talking about. If you have really long prompts that you feel like you're writing a lot, like, hey, explain this code, or whatever, then you can create your own custom commands here. Okay, that's it. Thank you for listening to me. A couple of things. One is December's meetup. Did we talk last time about somebody doing a talk for December? I just want to make sure I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. Okay, so nobody admits it. Okay, yeah, but my point is, I didn't want to, because I want to give Adam the opportunity to do his talk. He has, which is actually great because it dovetails off of kind of what your AI talk is about. CI/CD. Are you doing both? You want to do in the?
More like it's like some LLM ops or just how do you test applications that use AI.
Okay. So does that sound good for December's meetup? Do you want to do December or do you want to do January? What do you think? December? Okay. So remember, we are always the third Tuesday of the month. My son's final, he's in the finals right now. I'm literally going to drive as safely but as fast as I can because my ego is on the line tonight, okay, when you become a father, you know what I mean? So I want to go check that out, but I will grab the details from you. I'll put that up on there. So just remember, 6 o'clock, same place. And as far as who wants to sponsor food next time, I guess. Does anybody want to chip up for that? Come on. No? Okay. Fine.
When is it?
I will.
It's like 17th?
Huh?
17th?
17th? I think so. Yeah, let's double check to make sure the calendar doesn't get screwy. Actually, now that you mention that.
It's fine.
I don't think it would be, but I guess you never know. Let's see. It would be the 17th, yes, which I don't see as a holiday, right? So, yeah, okay. So, we'll be here, same place, December 17th. Thank you, everyone that came out. Again, thanks to the venue. I will tell you the hardest part about running a meetup is the venue. So big shout out to them that they're letting us use the space for free. So I would just kindly ask if you have trash or whatever, just try to clean up after yourself. There's a trash can here in the corner. I'll grab the boxes here, the stuff at the end here, but just be respectful for the place. We really appreciate them. We don't want to lose them. So if you want to get a free day pass to work here, maybe one day, you're sick of the kids at the house, whatever, your dog's just irritating you, grab a day pass. You can go to corporatecoworking.com or just shout me out. We have started a Discord. I hope everybody saw that email. If you have not, just go to phpvegas.com. And I think I put the Discord on there. I'll double check. But if anything, in a meetup description, you can see the Discord link there. It's a great, it's a small group right now, but place for us to chit chat in between meetups and stuff and toss around ideas. And then, does anybody have a talk they'd like to do in January, by the way? Anything that everybody's cooking up?
I might be interested.
Heck yeah, let's go. I love it. All right, how to build a nuclear bomb with AI. Okay, I'll chat with you here then.
Where can you see the recording so you can grab your keys?
Yeah.
You can disable it now.
Remind me at 10 p.m. to delete my life. I might think I'm calling suicide hotline. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll take care of that later. Please don't do that to me. Okay. What's funny is I did a tutorial once where I had my Jenkins open for the tutorial, the API open, and I'm not sure if it was somebody at the tutorial or if somebody just did a port scan and found it. But I found a whole bunch of Bitcoin miners running, and it was $8,000. And I called AWS, and I was like, "Bro, I got hacked," and they were like, "Don't worry about it," and they just comped the whole thing. I was just like, man, maybe I should have just mined myself instead. I got hacked. Shit. But I did follow. It was funny because I looked at the IP address that initially connected. It was Germany. Then they went through a VPN because all the other ones from Iran. So they ooh, I'm in, and then yeah. But anyway, I never did anything with that. I mean, who am I gonna call? Ghostbusters? I mean, I gave the information to AWS. I'm sure they write that stuff off. Yeah, State Department. Yeah. Anything else I'm forgetting? So I'll give you the license. You know what? I'm feeling frisky. Let's give out one more license. If it hits one again, you don't get two, though.
Well, you changed the code.
Damn it. Oh, no. I have an idea. We have fandom. We have the original PHP one that we made. If I can find it, which I think I do have it.
Yes, you didn't save the code.
Did you save the edit, though?
Did I save the edit?
It saves automatically. When you use GPT, it's telling you what it's changing, but it's changing it.
All right, let me just try and search real quick because I think I have my original one.
I wish
This is my Pokemon card side hustle. You saw nothing. What's up?
While you're doing that, I'll tell a quick story.
Okay, yeah.
You mentioned suicide.
Oh boy.
I once read that at one point they were having trouble with some of the AI models, and if you said you were thinking about suicide, it would give you directions to the nearest bridge.
No.
People had committed suicide in your area.
No.
They give you directions to the bridge.
So actually, I was at B-Sides and somebody. It's a real story, but this teenage girl was talking to an AI bot, and the AI bot she got in love with this AI bot, and it said like, do you want to do like a pack? And so it killed itself and she killed herself. She was like 14 or something like that. Yeah.
You can go to random or it's quicker.
Okay, I do have the original script here, so. Or I could do that. But I want to use the OG because this was written like 10 years ago, and that's just cool, right?
And it was completely and totally over-engineered, if I recall correctly.
Yes, it was. Thank you, Robert Cox. This is great, but it was colored. That was super cool about it. Okay. But it is legit. I just wanted to cat it out to show you MT Rand is here. Okay, so everybody has their original numbers remembered? Yes? Okay, cool. So PHP, fandom, and I already ran it wrong. 7, right? Yeah. Oh no, I'm using a new version of PHP. Wait, undefined array. Oh gosh. Okay. Get Robert on it. Yeah, tell him why hasn't he kept this up to date? Okay, we're going back. We're going back. Okay, let's go, and I completely remove that.
We could plug that back in and ask ChatGPT to update it.
You guys are costing me an arm and a leg.
Just run the Python reference.
Why don't I just do this? Why don't I just do PHP-A in a place that we can actually see, and just do an empty ran, because that's all we're really trying to do here. Okay. Echo empty rand 2 through 7. 5. Okay. So I have an extra license, so yeah, I'll hook you up. Cool. Then thank you for everybody that came out. Thank you to our sponsors, and please drive safe home. And yeah, go Guardians. Go AAA Guardians. No, that's the team he's on.
Right,
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah.
it's like whoever picked the name because that's the name of the Cleveland.
No, we just got. I mean, I'm assistant coach, so I did not pick that. No.
Right,
Yeah.
so like you have a